Today I'm going to give you 5 tips for fixing shoulder pain when pressing overhead.
Get up and get down, get up and get down.
The first thing we need to understand when assessing shoulder pain when pressing overhead is our shoulder mechanics. Now, Ed right now is in a fairly narrow grip, and watch what happens to his shoulders as he goes through the press. They're gonna flare out to the side. He's moving into relative shoulder internal rotation. That's something that we want to avoid. So ideally, I would have him get his hands just a little bit wider with his elbows in like this. Now, this is a relative shoulder externally rotated position. And from here, he's gonna have much better mechanics when pressing overhead. Here's why this is important to understand before we get to any of the other tips for today. Come on over and we're gonna have a little anatomy lesson with Tommy. When we look at the mechanics of the shoulder, we have the greater tuberosity right here in your acromion process at the top. And there's a very small amount of space between the two. Underneath sits your supraspinatus tendon of your rotator cuff and your biceps tendon right in this area. Now, whenever you press overhead, we want to make sure that there's enough room between those two areas to avoid pinching and smashing of those different structures. Externally rotating allows that shoulder joint the most optimal amount of room and space within the joint to allow for overhead mechanics with, again, less pinching and smashing of those structures together. When you internally rotate the shoulder, there's just an increased likelihood of those shoulders parts sort of moving and smashing together. So the external rotation that you get by being in this position at the start allows for the most optimal joint mechanics to clear that space as you go overhead. Now, the first thing, now that we understand the importance of external rotation, is your assessment. Here's something you can easily do at home to assess your level of external rotation side to side. So Ed, come on over here. We're gonna use the front of this rack. So I want you on this side, facing this way. What you're gonna do is find a rack or a rig, and you're gonna get set up with your arm up into an elevated position. Again, this is gonna be similar to the elbow posture that you're going to be in at the start of your press. Right here, so drop that elbow just a little bit lower. Right here, I want you to keep the elbow in contact with the rig, externally rotate as far as you can. While you're doing this, I want you to assess for first, how far do you get, the ease in going out, back and forth. Okay, make sure that you're square to the rig as well. So I would just go left and right a couple times, get a feel for what that side is like, and then again, do the same thing on the other side. Now, if you notice a different side to side, that's the side that you're gonna work on. This is obviously the self-assessment. If you have a friend, take a step out. I want you to get into that same position again. You can do an easy manual muscle test. So this is what you could do to assess your level of strength and stability, again, for that shoulder pain. See if we can uncover one of the weak links behind it. You would just support the elbow right here. And again, we're in the same position for the start of that press. So not too high, just a little bit lower. And I would again have him hold it here as I push in slightly, sustain that pressure for at least 3 to 5 seconds. And then I'm gonna go to the other side. And again, what I'm looking for is there an imbalance? Is it different side to side? Hold it, hold, hold, hold. And again, we're looking for 3 to 5 seconds of sustained pressure. Does it create pain? Is it easier for me to push in? Do I notice that elbow wants to jut out to the side as soon as I put pressure on? We're looking for are there imbalances that I'm able to uncover? So if we did find a different side to side, how do we address it? We're gonna start with 2 different strength exercises. The first one is gonna be an isometric strength exercise. You're going to find a loop resistance band. Now we're using TheraBand today, but any type of looped resistance band, you could also get a small monster band like this that's very narrow and just loop it a few times if you needed to. But we're gonna take this and put it around the wrist right there. What we're going to perform is an external rotation W raise. So with the band around his wrists, he's going to first externally rotate at the shoulder joints and then raise into an elevated position. So again, in this posture, this is similar to the exact problem he's having, which is shoulder pain with pressing. He's going to hold that end position for about 5 seconds, trying to make sure his elbows stay in and his arm or hand is elevating out to the side. So we're maintaining a slight externally rotated position. In isometric, is a muscle contraction without sufficient movement. So in this posture, he's externally rotating, but he's not having more movement into external rotation. This is often an exercise that can be tolerated easier than something as far as moving that strength through, in, and out of a specific range. So early on in the rehab process, this is something that would be step one before we do something that moves in and out of external rotation. If this is too painful, just regress back down to the W, and you're just gonna hold this position for a couple seconds. After maybe 10, 15, over the next couple weeks, you can progress up to a raised position. Now, again, something like that, 10 reps, 5-second hold. Our next step, like I said, step 2 would then be moving the strength through the concentric and eccentric application. So I'm gonna have you in a kneeling position. And what we're gonna do is take that light resistance band and you're gonna put your elbow on your knee. So again, this is actually, let's sit down on the ground. That'll probably be the best position for you. So in this posture, the reason we're sitting and having his elbow on top of his knee like this is it's again putting his shoulder into the same position that he would be in, or similar position to that press. So make sure that you're right here, okay? Elbows out to the side a little bit. From here, you're going to externally rotate as far as you can and then control back. Very good. Let me move this just a little bit more so you can have a little bit more range of motion. Okay, so he's tensioning. You can see he's moving into external rotation, holding, and then slow with the eccentric on the way back. So now we've moved past the isometric of step 1, and now we're moving into the movement of strengthening through the eccentric, lowering, and the concentric movement. Something like this, I would have him do maybe 10 to 15 reps at the start, really focusing on he's gonna feel that lateral shoulder working pretty good. Those are the muscles that are producing that external rotation. This should not create any pain at all. If so, we're doing a little bit too much in the resistance. If he did not have a band like this, he could do a very small weight. It's right there. So he could come and rotate through that full range of motion. Because it's the band is really pulling through that full range, this is gonna be much easier, but this would be, again, a regression, and then you could step up to using the band. Feel those shoulder muscles working pretty good? All right, so we have assessed shoulder external rotation strength. We started working on our baseline strength. Now we need to move to step 3, which is going to be improving shoulder strength and stability. And again, stability is different than pure strength. Strength is only the ability to produce force and power. Stability is your ability to limit excessive or unwanted motion, basically control positioning. So in order to enhance stability, you need to create a little bit of instability within the environment that you're moving a weight. What I love doing are 2 different things for this. The first one is going to be an upside down kettlebell press. So I'm going to give you the lightweight. Got the Kettlebell Kings 12 kilo bell today. He's going to hold this upside down, and then he's just going to go through his pressing motion. Now, again, what am I looking for? Maintaining that external rotation. So as he goes up, I'm gonna try to keep that elbow within that same plane of motion, not kick out to the side. That's gonna be key for him. Now, why the upside down kettlebell rather than just a dumbbell or a regular held kettlebell on the side? Because the center of gravity of the bell is in the main aspect of the bell, and the handle is offset like this, it creates more instability. It's harder to hold upside down. Obviously, it's gonna be shaking and fall over if you are unable to keep balance. So this creates an unstable environment that's going to enhance the stability. All the muscles within the shoulder now have to kick on to a greater degree in order to keep the shoulder joint in that optimal positioning for the rest of the push. So something like this, again, you can start low with 3, 5, or 10 reps. You don't need to do a lot of weight, and I would highly recommend going slow at first. So how'd that feel? Good. Awesome. The next step would be using another type of implement to create some instability, and that is with the band bell shorty bar. Now, you guys have probably seen the bamboo bar that I've used before with pressing and with squats. This is the dumbbell version of that. So I'm gonna give this to you. Again, the idea behind this is that the bamboo bar weighs next to nothing. This shorty bar only weighs 4 pounds, and we have 5 kilo plates hanging off the edge from the bands. The swinging bands that are bouncing around are creating an unstable environment, again, to an even greater degree than the upside down kettlebell. And this allows us to perform that press and call upon all those muscles that surround the joint to, again, do their job to create that optimal stability within the joint, which is the main cause for a lot of people's shoulder pain. Again, the cue would be to make sure that that elbow is not kicking out a lot as you go up. A good cue is just to make sure that your forearm stays vertical. One thing that can be very helpful, go slow and even have a couple different pauses in a few different positions as you go up. And that's gonna really call upon all those shoulder muscles to work together to create that optimal environment. But again, the idea is that we first work strength and stability. Then we're going to eventually get back to the barbell. But strength first with the isometric and then the concentric, eccentric action of the strength movement. Then we invite in single arm stability work with unstable tools. Now let's get back to the barbell. Now, what I want to do with the barbell, I'll have Ed pick that back up, is perform slow tempo raises or slow tempo presses. So let's jump up here again. So now that we've gotten our understanding for the externally rotated position that we want, you can see how his elbows are on the inside part of his hands and he's not going to let his elbows duck out to the side. He's going to perform 3 presses and go slow. So what I would have you do is 1, 2, 3, then press all the way up. And what that's going to do is cue his body to make sure that he owns every aspect of the movement. Tempo work is key, especially when you are coming back from any type of injury, because too often we go fast and we don't own the motion. We don't even have the realization or the awareness of the problem occurring. This gives you that sensory information directly. If you go too fast or if you go slow enough, you'll feel where your body's miscuing. So it allows you to really pause, reset your body, get the different cues that you need to then press all the way through. So those felt good? Awesome. So guys, that is the 5 tips for working through shoulder pain when pressing overhead. We're understanding the externally rotated position that we need for the optimal shoulder mechanics so that we can clear the shoulder joint. We're working on assessing your external rotation, how you can do that by yourself or with a partner. We've then gone through 2 different ways to improve strength isometrically and then with the concentric, eccentric action of the strength movement. We've done single arm stability work, both with the kettlebell and the shorty band bell bar, and then also the slow tempo pressing. Hopefully that gives you a good fundamental understanding of ways in which you can take your strength work and get back to pain-free pressing overhead, moving some big weight, which is what we all love to do. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comment section below, or if there's any aches and pains that you're dealing with that you'd like me to address in future videos. Until next time, guys, happy overhead pressing.
They say that energy flows where attention goes, so I pay no mind. Why waste my time with all these negative cats scratching? So caught up in their egos, these people have lost.